Hey guys, I'm going to do a little unboxing on a Melling LS oil pump. It's the regular, I guess it'd be considered the standard pressure pump, which is the M295. I was doing a little bit of research online. I want to call it blueprinting, but just kind of going through the pump, making sure that it's efficient, delivers a proper amount of oil pressure that I'm going to need on upgrades I'm doing to the 4.8. Not unhappy with the current oil pressure of the 4.8 because, you know, it'll start and idle cold, you know, at good 45 pounds of oil pressure. Idles fully hot, probably in the 30, 35 pounds, somewhere in that range. You know, it jumps pressure really if you start revving the engine up. But from what I found online, just doing a little research on porting and shimming your relief spring on these pumps, they're talking about they max pressure at, I think, 60 or 65 pounds. It'll be on almost like I don't want to say a full bypass, but because the pressure relief spring inside the pump will open, you end up losing volume of oil to your engine and can see a pressure drop once the relief spring or relief mechanism internally bypasses oil inside the pump. Well, I was trying to do a little bit of research to see, all right, where are they cleaning these things up? You know, inlet, outlet, internally, I see that. The gray area I'm coming up with is on how much and if you should shim the relief spring. Basically, the best I can tell just by, you know, scouring the internet forums and reading different threads, people shim these things between 60 thousandths and 120 thousandths. All right, so from what I found, and you know, I have no information of my own to back this up, this is just what I found online. If you shim at about 60 thou, you gain about 5 pounds of oil pressure. From what I've read, if you shim at 100 thousandths, you're supposed to gain about 10 pounds of oil pressure, and mostly in the upper RPMs. Like I see a lot of people saying, I either shim my oil pump or I bought a shimmed oil pump, and I don't really see a big difference. I don't see any difference at idle. I'm like, okay, my idle oil pressure is more than, you know, sufficient to handle what it does already. So I'm not worried about idle oil pressure as much as cruise oil pressure and higher RPM oil pressure. Because I think even with this smaller cam I'm putting in the 4.8, it's probably going to see above 6,000 RPMs. So if I'm going to spin, you know, possibly, because we don't know yet, if I'm going to potentially spin 6,000, 6,500 RPMs, I want to make sure I have at least 65 to 70 pounds of oil pressure. So if I need to shim that relief spring a little bit, that's fine with me. That doesn't bother me because I've modified oil pumps on many different makes and models of vehicles. So let's get this thing unboxed and see what it's got in it. Melling. This thing opens. Okay, let's pull this thing out of this box and see what we got. Pump, new pickup O-rings. Another thing you should do is make sure you read all the literature or watch the YouTube videos from Melling that tells you which pickup O-ring to run, because if you run the wrong one, you're going to hate life really fast. So that's basically what we're looking at right there. This little handout or little included instructions on the O-ring tells you how to read the end of your pickup where it bolts to the oil pump and know which one to use. Make 100% sure you get the right one. Make sure you lubricate it with either a good quality oil or a straight STP, silicone, do something These things are so small, they're just bizarre the way they're made. And of course right here, this is going to be your pressure relief spring and assembly. Then you got your outer plate, and then you'll have your gears inside of here. So let's see if we can crack this thing open and see what we can find inside. Well, I had a heck of a time getting that loose. The only thing that really was locking it into that housing was just a little bit of blue Loctite. I almost gave up on trying to get this plug out of this pressure relief spring housing, because that's just a 5/16 or whatever, 8mm, I guess, like hex head fitting. I mean, this fits decent in there, but I was almost stripping out this head trying to get this thing out with just a short little 12 or 18 inch 3/8 breaker bar on a socket. So I end up having to just hit it real softly or real, gently with a 3/8 Matco impact to get that thing to release. So that was a lot more involved than I was expecting. So let's get it over here on the counter and start taking off those cover bolts. It'll be interesting to see if they use Loctite on these cover bolts too, because if they do, you want to make sure and continue that. This is a Torx bit. Okay, that was an adventure. First one I tried to use, because of course the only Torx bits like this I have were the hollow safety kind. As soon as I put any torque on it at all, I didn't think these things, because these things only torque to 6 to 8 foot-pounds. Of course, they probably have Loctite on them. I don't see Loctite on them, but that doesn't mean it's not on there. But according to online, these little pump cover bolts only torque to between 80 to 100 inch-pounds, which is what, like 6 to 8 foot-pounds. And you would think these would have at least some blue Loctite, but they don't look to have anything on it. But man, they were tight. As far as that little Harbor Freight driver was concerned, it wasn't messing around. So I had to ground that down. Wonder if that's any kind of a ooh, that's smooth. That's some kind of a graphite coating on the inside of that plate. It's really smooth. Huh. Well, let's keep looking, see what we can find. Looks like we've got I wanted to try to make sure I kept these gears 100% orientated the same way I brought them out. Not necessarily like point to point, but because these are so precision made and intended, ooh, they're polished pretty good. Because I heard people, or I've seen other people talk about polishing or micro polishing these gears. I'm thinking, they don't look like they need that. I wanted to keep them, whichever side was up towards me when I pulled it apart, I want to make sure and keep them in that orientation if at all possible. So now the areas, which, apparently they've changed their castings or something since the beginning videos, because you can look, because they're talking about deburring and smoothing this transition right here into the pump body. It's pretty smooth. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of casting flash. See if you guys can see that. Right there on that inside, over on that side of that hole, there's some casting flash that hangs out and could cause a little bit of turbulence. But from the inside. They recommend that you port it from the inside and remove all casting irregularities, casting lines, and just get a purely radius smooth transition from your tube into your pump body. And then over on that side, they talk about just, you know, removing all the casting ridge and sharpness to get a nice radius outlet out of the oil pump body. Now, from what I've seen, they're not reporting any increase in oil pressure. It's just supposed to help with efficiency, which in turn, I don't know if anybody's proven this, is supposed to increase the volume slightly. But, you know, since I port stuff, there's no reason for me not to port this and polish it up a little bit before I put it back in put it in my 4.8, because that's the plan, is to get this thing all ready so when I do the cam swap, I can put it in my 4.8 and have a brand new oil pump in the engine. So that's where we're at. I just wanted to show you the first step with getting this thing ready to do some port work on it, get it pulled apart, kind of review. You know, it's dry inside. They don't put any kind of lubricant or anything in there from the factory. So there it is. We got the pump cover off, got the gears pulled out. I guess I should go ahead and show you what's behind door number 2 here. I want to try not to get too much time into this video so I can make it halfway easy to upload from my phone, because you have your cap. Hope you guys can see that. You can see the remnants of the blue Loctite. You have your pressure spring, and then up inside of here, I don't know if you can hear it moving. It's supposed to come out, I think. There is a small, I guess they're going to refer to it as a valve. That's what actually moves up and down in that bore with the spring pressure to set your relief. So all you have to do when you shim your pump is find anything that'll fit inside of this well on this plug, set it at 50, 60, 70, 100, you know, up to, I think they said you can go up to 120 thousandths, and you can increase your oil pressure. Now, keep in mind, there's no reason to go full crazy and increase your oil pressure too much, because that can cause bearing wash issues, suck your oil pan dry. There's a lot of negative things that can happen when you create too much oil pressure. So that's where we're at. It's a super simple. There's not very many parts. I don't foresee having any problems with this, you know, porting and shimming process. So there's my vidya for today. As always, appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions or comments or experience from this procedure, good, bad, or indifferent, please hit up the comments. Hit that bell so you get notifications. Thanks again.